do you know if you were to go buy a house today, how much money do you have to have saved to put down in the house?
I thought I could use my first time home buyers. I don't know how much it is. I just know it's less than the normal.
Yes. Okay. So that's another thing. Everyone's like, what's my first time home buyer program or incentive? I'm like, there really isn't technically one that's called first time home buyer. There is the government loan, that's FHA, that most first time home buyers use. But that's what we'll dive into today.
Welcome back and happy Tuesday, turkeys. How long have we known each other?
We've known each other for 2 decades.
I am not apologizing for who I am or what I like or the people that I love.
How do I be a wife? How do I be a mom? And how do I be myself and all of that? You didn't see that coming, did you?
Anyway, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. We are wrapping up being adults.
It's over after this month.
We're going to go back to some nonsense, it's actually true. We are going to go back to some nonsense for next month. But Kayla has a very special, I'm excited, home buying 101 episode for us. And I don't know. I think we just need to dive in, but I do have a good little intro segue. For those of you who listen on the regular, we did a budgeting 101 episode. What would that be now? 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
So at the beginning of this adulting, we considered that kind of in the hopes of, for a lot of people, purchasing a home is a goal. But our dear friend that we keep reading his comments from, because he keeps commenting and he always has good things to say, from YouTube, I just liked his response to our budgeting episode. So I'm going to read that to kick it off. And then Kayla's basically going to take over because I don't know diddly shit about home buying. Okay. Our BFF one dull geek. So he said, here's how I taught budgeting to my kids. It was helpful to them and it's helpful to me. What? Kayla, what is the abbreviation?
YMMV?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You may... Your may vary. Okay, well, I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. Okay, but number 1, he said, make a list of everything that you want to do, include dreams and mundane things, paying the mortgage, saving for retirement, saving for a big vacation, buying an airplane. For those of you who don't know, he flies small planes. Whatever. Make a list of every single thing you want to do that costs money, and tracking your spending over a month or more is a good way to catch anything that you might not have thought of. And then he said, number 2, prioritize the list from the most important to the least important. And number 3, put a monthly price tag on each of those things. The mortgage is $1,000 a month, the utilities are $500, etc. Again, tracking your spending is a good way to get an idea of what some of these things actually cost. And then he goes on to say, now here's the hard part. Take your income and subtract the most important thing from your income, then the second. And then when you reach 0, stop and draw a line on the list. So you can do that pretty easy on Kayla's spreadsheet. Because for you guys that didn't listen, we have a cool budgeting, monthly tracking tool from Kayla. So then he said, everything above the line is your budget and everything below the line is the stuff that you have to stop spending on because you've decided that there's something more important and you don't have any money left for those things. This is a really practical way of helping yourself prioritize. Mm-hmm. And then he said, whenever you're tempted to spend on a below the line item, remind yourself that you're going to have to give something up above the line. And his example is, I really want to buy this gadget, but do I want to sacrifice being able to go on a cruise with my wife? No. Okay, gadget, don't go anywhere. Maybe you'll fit into next year's plan.
I like that.
Right? And then he said, the term budget makes us think of being restricted, but to me, it's about funding my goals and only the most important ones. I found that when I remind myself of my priorities, it's easier to stick to my budget because it's just a list of my highest priority goals. Everything outside of my budget isn't a high priority. And then he has some suggestions, which I already like how he's reframing this into things I can't do versus things I want to do more, because I do think that is a helpful shift of perspective. So then he says suggestions. First, I found it's been a really good thing to include a charitable donation as a high priority item, even over some things that we might really want. It acknowledges that the skills that I used to earn money may have been developed by me, but they didn't originate from me. I was just given them as a gift. And maybe part of that reason that I was given them was to be able to help someone else. So in our family, we have always put a 10% charitable giving as our first priority. In our marriage, we've never once regretted it. Honestly, I think we've regretted more when we missed an opportunity to give than when we to give than what we gave. Okay, sorry. Reading. I didn't pre-read this out loud in my head before the teacher called on me and I'm making mistakes. Then he said, honestly, that would be my number one budgeting advice. Commit to giving some percentage, in our case 10, and then figure out how to live off of the 90. If you can develop the discipline to live off of 90 or even 80, it makes living off 100 easier. Second, include a monthly contribution to an emergency fund is a pretty high priority. There's always going to be emergencies that are impossible to plan for. So having money set aside for the inevitable appliance breaking or flat tire or whatever makes it easier to deal with. For me, every paycheck I spend $500 to the emergency fund. With 4 kids and a house that allows for 4 kids to live in it, there was always something. And then he put, side note, why do women like purple and lavender colors so much? It's odd that you guys thought those colors were soothing. Not my reaction at all. Is it because you associate the color with the smell? Lavender is a soothing smell, but as a color, ick.
You know, I've always been like a pastel type of girly.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. It's
That
got
cracked
some
me up.
bold. So, by the way, YMMV stands for your mileage may vary. So, I think he meant just like used to say that people may experience a particular thing in different ways.
Yeah. Your experience. That feels like a very pilot thing to say.
YMMV. That's
It's
great.
very on brand for
That's
what I
cool.
know of
I like
him.
the way he framed it, and I like the line. It's very visual, and you
Yeah.
can kind of see where that goes.
Yeah, a good way to help you prioritize and then kind of realize like, okay, wait a minute, I can't do all of these things. The emergency fund is definitely a good point. That's for sure something that Jason and I have prioritized. I thought the giving one was really interesting. I struggle with it because I am skeptical of every charitable organization, even though I don't think that it's necessary. There are good ones, there are great ones out there. I also sometimes feel like because I work in a helping profession, as does Jason, I'm giving my soul to people every day. But I do think another good way to look at that is it's good to incorporate giving back in some form. So you could like giving money back, or giving a donation specifically, but also someone could make it a goal to donate like 10% of their time in a month to volunteering and giving back. But it's definitely a good point. Like it's a good reminder that we might have things and we did work hard, but also to acknowledge that somehow we were blessed with our brains and health and the ability to do that stuff, and that was not in our control. Anyway.
Hey, turkeys, real quick, we want to tell you about our fun new free craft corner. Every quarter, in line with the equinox or solstice, we are going to send out new farts and crafts projects. You can find the link in the show notes. Just drop us your email. We promise not to spam you, but we'd love for you to join us. Now back to the show.
And with that, take it off.
Okay, everybody. So I was trying to think of a question to open this because that's what I've been doing. First, I'll give a few caveats as we like to do these days. I should start off by saying I am not a licensed realtor. I have been in the industry for 10 years, but I'm not a licensed realtor. I am also not a licensed mortgage advisor or loan counselor, or have any affiliation with a lender or a builder or a realtor organization. So this is just like very basic 101 that I've learned through my career that a lot of the clients I talk to don't know, or we go through this stuff. And before I got into this industry, before we bought our homes, I had no idea either. So I just feel like it's very helpful. It's like a good step. What's the process? How much money do I even have to put down? I was thinking of asking you that question. Like, do you know if you were to go buy a house today, how much money do you have to have saved to put down in the house?
I thought I could use my first time home buyers. I don't know how much it is. I just know it's less than the normal.
Yes. Okay. So that's another thing. Everyone's like, what's my first time home buyer program or incentive? I'm like, there really isn't technically one that's called first time home buyer. There is the government loan, that's FHA, that most first time home buyers use, but that's what we'll dive into today. So I feel like the first process or the first step into exploring the option of buying a home is figuring out where to start who to go to and what is your actual like steps that you need to do to make sure you can afford it, first of all. And then you find a home that you love. So if you want to just pull up, I feel like we're going to have some questions. So if you just want to pull up that first one, that first graphic, if you guys are watching, it's the Home Buying 101.
Yes, at last, the Cave of Wonders.
Oh gosh. My brain was luckily firing on all cylinders when I made this because I really wanted to break it down into a couple different ways to purchase a home. So I hope these colors are less girly or unattractive to everybody. But that's good right there.
There we go.
Yeah, we can scroll down as we talk through them. So, excuse me. Okay, as you're looking at this, there's a couple ways to go about it. So when you're starting on the left, it says, where do you want to live? I feel like that's a reasonable question to start with.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to live South Dallas? Do you want to live on the outside of Dallas? Do you want to live in a particular neighborhood that you've always had your eye on? I just use Dallas as an example. Because you got to start figuring out where you want to live. Once you have that down, it's a matter of, depending on your market, do you want to buy a home that's already existing, like a resale home? It's going to be already built, established. Someone's probably going to already be living there that's selling it. Or do you want to do a new build, which is my expertise in buying a home from a builder, and it's a brand new home that's been built, and you're the first person that ever lives in it. It changes a few things in this process. So, which is why I broke it down into those two options. So we'll just go really easy and we'll go all the way to the right. So if you're looking at resale versus new home, if you say, I would like a resale home or existing home, either I don't have builders in the area or I want a larger lot with maybe some acreage with some trees, just stuff that some builders can't do. Perfect. Amazing. I would say my face was in the way. Find a realtor. If you're going with a resale home, you have to find a realtor. I feel like you don't have to, but it's so helpful because they can pull listings, they can show you listings, they can give you more information, they can kind of guide you through the process. That's my first step. My second, and you'll notice that it's going to be in the beginning of all of these options, is get pre-approved. And the reason why I say that is because I have some lovely clients who come in and they fall in love with our homes. But once we talk through numbers or once they get pre-approved, it's disappointment. And then you have to have that conversation with them. So like, why would you want to go see homes and then get your hopes up? I would like to know where we want to live so I have an idea of the prices. If I'm on this side of the city, the prices are going to be in the 300s. If I'm on this side of the city, prices are going to be in the 400s, right? And that way you kind of have an idea. So when you talk to the lender, you're going to say, hey, can I afford or can I get pre-approved for a home at 450? And maybe they say, no, you're approved for 360. Okay, well, now you have to go back to the other neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Getting pre-approved, in my opinion, is going to have to be sooner rather than later in the process if you don't want to get disappointed and you want to know what you're getting into. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When you're getting pre-approved, is there a way to have like an estimation on what your monthly mortgage is going to be? At least less taxes and insurance, because I know when Jason bought our house before we were married, so I was not as involved because we weren't like combined forces at that point necessarily with finances, but I do remember them giving us an estimation, which was wildly off base, for taxes and insurance. Anyway, just because to me, like seeing the big number, you're pre-approved for this doesn't mean anything to me.
Exactly. So when people come to my door, they're like, I am pre-approved for 600. And I'm like, great. What do you actually want your monthly payment to be? The other reason why finding your area is the best first step, not particularly finding the actual home, but just the general area that you want to live in. If you can find out from the realtor, or we'll get into the new builds area in a second, but if you can find out what the tax rate is and what the HOA is, just generally in that area, the lender should be able to run a fuller picture of the monthly payment, because I think that's key, because principal and interest could be actually not bad, but once you put in really high property taxes, that could add $1,000 to your monthly payment in some cities.
Yeah.
So if you can find out the tax rate and the HOA, that way the lender should be able to run a full picture of an estimate of monthly payment.
Because to me, that would be more of an indication to me what my monthly payment would be if I could afford something. Because my fear would be that the bank would pre-approve me for something that I wasn't actually comfortable paying on a monthly basis.
Which happens, especially when the interest rates are higher like they are right now.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh yeah, you can technically afford this, but are you actually comfortable with this monthly payment? Because, the rates. So yeah. Getting pre-approved, getting an estimate of monthly payment, then you can start your home search, like your actual detailed home search where you're going out and taking a look at homes. Say you find one. I'm going down the right side of the list where the green is. You look for a home, you find a home. Great, amazing. In a resale situation, you normally submit an offer. The realtor will do that. If they accept your offer, then there's usually an options period. You can order an inspection, which is the next one on the list. If everything goes well, you're going to get the full approval for the loan and you're going to close on the house. So that's the pretty straightforward route if everything goes well for a resale home. But you're really going to want a realtor to kind of help you out with all those things because you may not have access to every option, every information available. So
that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
It's annoying, but it makes sense.
Yes. So if you live in an area where there's home builders and you like the idea of building from scratch and you don't mind being in a community with other homes and you don't want a lot of land because most builders don't have a ton of land on these homes, but they normally have good amenities. You're obviously buying a brand new home with a warranty, upgraded features, blah, blah, blah. This is my little expertise, so I'm trying not to get on a soapbox too much. So going back to the top middle box where it says resale versus new home. Say you choose new home. At that point, you may want to shop builders, again, alongside of where do I want to live? What home builders build in that area? Start looking at those. And then what does my timeline look like? Is my lease up in 2 months and I need to find a home that's closing quickly, which would be considered an inventory home? That's what INV is, inventory. That's usually a home that's either started construction or is complete and it's just sitting there ready to be bought.
Okay.
Yep. So if you're like, I got to get out of my lease, like if I can find something, I'd love to move like next week. That's where we would look at a home that's complete. Whereas some people want to pick out all their stuff. They have time to build. Maybe they have a home to sell still, or maybe their lease isn't up until next year. So they're like, we can do a to-be built, which is what TBB stands for, where you basically start from the ground and you build everything from scratch. So that's kind of fun. So once you figure out your area and your top maybe 3 or 4 builders and then your timeline, again, I would say get pre-approved because one builder may start in the 400s, one may start in the 600s. Like you got to figure out where you want to be.
Yeah.
So at that point, say you have time to build. Once you get pre-approved, we're going to go to the right and we're going to pick our floor plan. Because when you build new, you can pick from 5 to 20 floor plans that builder may offer. So you figure out which floor plan works for you that's within your budget. You pick your floor plan and then you pick your lot, which is cool. You literally walk different lots that are available and you see where they're at. You see the view. Is there a fire hydrant in front? All that stuff you get to pick out. And then once you have that, you would go under contract. Sorry, my baby's crying. You would then go to the design center, pick out your fun options. And then going back to the left, we would build the home. You would get final approval on the loan. And then to the right, you do any walkthroughs and inspections, and then you close. So it's like you pick your stuff, we build the home, you get final approval, walkthroughs, and then you close. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think the only thing is I know there's parts of the country where these builders aren't like Texas. I know like Texas has a lot of options with builders and these big lots where they're making homes that are not prefabricated, but there's like a set plan.
Mm-hmm.
So it's custom, but it's not from scratch. I don't know if there's a difference in the word between custom and then the people that are going to maybe want to go out or have a lot and then go do builder architect plans approved. Like there's a whole other world of 100% custom building. And I
If you
think
are 100% custom building, I don't think you need this podcast because you probably already know what you're doing.
yeah,
But yeah,
probably.
for sure. This is called like technically production. So we have a production of floor plans and options, but depending on the process, you get to still pick within the options that we provide, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
And it's usually like cheaper to do it that way. You're still getting to have some say in things, but because a large company is purchasing stuff in bulk, right? You tend to get a better deal on prices.
Yep. The other thing, I'll just go through this last scenario real quick. So go back to get pre-approved on the left side of the screen. If you don't decide to do a new build, you would just go straight to picking an inventory home, which again, you wouldn't get to change or pick anything out. Typically, these are almost done or already in the process. So you would just pick the inventory home. We would again finish building it. And then the same thing, final approval, walkthrough, close. So shoot, what was it? You were just saying something that I was going to touch on. I can't remember. I just lost my train of thought.
I was just saying that I think some parts of the country have a lot more of like the custom builders, the production style homes than other parts. So if some of this sounds foreign to you, like I've never heard of any of that, it may be that you may not have builders to shop from, depending on the area that you live in the country. I know by us, there's some production companies, but I don't know that they do custom. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it's going to be in the bigger cities and then maybe some offset cities where there's land to buy, but it's populated enough where builders are going to obviously make money because they're going to be able to sell. So yeah, this is not for every area, but if you have the option, that is an area to explore. I will say you don't need a realtor if you're going to buy a new home. You definitely can.
With the production, the new home production. Sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
clarifying for people.
You're good. I appreciate it. Yeah, I talk about this all day. So if I may assume that I'm saying something that makes sense, but it's probably just in my brain. Realtors are not required, but you can have one. Just be careful because a lot of builders will require them to come with you that first visit. And if they don't come with you that first visit, some builders are very particular on saying, well, you can't have one. So
that's funny.
Right? Okay, does that all make sense?
Yes, this is such a nice little follow the yellow brick road.
Really, it's just like figuring out where you want to go, get pre-approved. Because that's the most important thing these days. Like we talked about budgeting, what's going to fit within our budget, what's comfortable, what is going to allow us to stay in this home and not be stressed out of our mind and not be house poor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
I think it's good to, because if you get pre-approved and then you thought you were going to do a new home and you get pre-approved, all of a sudden you might realize like, I can't afford any of the builders or I'm not comfortable with any of those prices. And that might bop you over to buying something that's already.
Yep. Or in the opposite scenario, if you're looking at a resale home and you get pre-approved and the pre-approval number is fine, but you really want your monthly payment at a certain cost, a lot of the resale homes, they don't have incentives like builders do. So you're going to be more inclined to get today's market rate for interest rate, which is still in the 6s.
Yeah.
With a builder, a lot of builders right now are offering incentives to buy down your rate. So there's builders that can go down to like a 3.99, 4.25, 4.75. And so that would be the other thing to consider, because if you need your monthly payment at a certain point, you want your rate lower, builders do offer incentives to help you do that. So
that's cool. That makes sense. When you have large purchasing power in a company.
Exactly. So if you want to just move on to the next slide, because here's the biggest thing that I get questioned on is the loan types. So we were talking about first time homebuyer stuff. There's usually, really there's 4 big loans that you can get. The top 3 are government loans, technically. So
I was going to say the VA loan is the 0% down. That's what I always hear everybody yip yap about around here because we have so much military.
Totally makes sense. So yes, if you're military veteran, you can obviously utilize the VA loan, which gives you 0% down. Like you don't have to put any money down on the home. And the other thing that's amazing is you don't have PMI, which is like mortgage insurance. So that a lender always charges PMI unless you're putting 20% down. And I'll get into that in a second. But that's a benefit of using VA. They don't charge you that, which is helpful for monthly.
Also, I did not know that the Beef Boys had a loan.
When I first started this industry and I kept hearing USDA, I thought it was like separated, but no, it is the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Yeah, the Beef Boys have a 0% down loan. It's based on location. You have to make under a certain amount of money in the household, and you have to have a certain credit. So there are some stipulations for USDA, but if you qualify, it's another 0% down option.
Interesting. Is that, you said it's location based? So like, are they is this technically supposed to be in more agricultural areas versus urban?
I kind of think so. We had it on the outskirts of Austin, so it makes sense that may be I don't know how they determine the area, but that seems to make sense.
Interesting.
If you're in a beefy area, I'm just kidding. That's so great that you said
that. Fucking Beef Boy. This is a whole other. There's just stuff in the government that doesn't make sense, and these giant agencies that do 500,000 things. Anyway,
I get it. Okay, FHA. This is the one that people assume is the first-time home buyers. I guess it makes sense because I don't know. It doesn't matter. That one does require money down, but it's only 3.5%. Now, some people do not have 3.5%, and because it's a government loan, you can qualify for down payment assistance. So you can have a buyer that is approved for FHA with down payment assistance. So you're not actually having to come up with the full 3.5%, but if you have the 3.5%, that is the minimum down. So my biggest thing is people always think like, oh, I can't buy a home because I have to save 20%. Definitely not. You don't have to do 20% at all. You can even do a conventional loan without 20%, which is the next column down. If we forget the government loans and we're looking at a conventional loan, there's actually a few options. So yes.
It's a conventional loan through a bank.
So conventional loan is going to be it's just going to be through a lender or a bank, and then that particular lender could hold onto it itself, or it could sell it off to a different bank.
Oh, yeah. Ours gets sold every 5 minutes, it feels like. Okay.
So 20%, that's the one that people assume or used to assume that was like standard. People talk about this one a lot because once you do put 20% down, you don't have the mortgage insurance again. So if you're obviously not a veteran and you don't qualify for VA, the only other way to not have mortgage insurance looped into your monthly payment is if you put 20% down on the home.
And how much? So the PMI, the mortgage insurance, is that costing more? Is that adding to your monthly payment?
Yeah, it could be anywhere from like $100 to $300.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So the good thing with conventional is if you are a first-time home owner or buyer, there is an option. It depends on qualifications. And again, I'm not the lender, so you'd have to talk to somebody about this, but you could potentially qualify for a 3% first-time home buyer loan with conventional. The biggest pro on doing a 3% versus the FHA 3.5% is obviously you're saving half a percentage, but that's not a huge deal. It's more so once you're in the home and you've either paid off 20% or you have 80% equity in the home, right? So you're getting to the 80-20, your mortgage insurance is able to be taken off. Whereas, so you're able to have that come off eventually. With FHA, it will never come off unless you refinance, which is not the end of the world, but that's just like the biggest differences.
Okay.
However, you could put down anywhere from 5 to 19% down. Like you can put down however much you want with conventional as long as you're approved on that. And then the only other stipulation is if you're buying a home for investment purposes only, that is what it is. It's not you're going to live there and then rent it out. It's like I'm buying this as a rental property. You have to put 25% down.
Okay. It's very helpful.
So there's lots of options. You don't have to save a crap ton of money. Sometimes it's even better. Like I'll have people compare, what if I put 5% down versus 10%? Well, you'll actually save like $15,000 out of pocket. It only changes your monthly payment about $50. So hang on to your cash and just budget for $50 more on your monthly payment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I wanted to get pre-approved. Where do I go?
So if you're looking at a resale home, you could go to any bank or lender. If you have a bank, if you have a credit union, they're always really good. If you're
Okay.
looking at a builder, a lot of builders have their own lenders, and some of those lenders only do a soft pull on your credit, which is nice because then you don't get a hit on your credit.
Okay. That makes sense.
So literally wherever and then wherever. Yeah. Any bank.
So
any
it would be
lender.
like getting a car loan.
Yeah.
If I was going to go just buy something that already existed.
Correct. You don't have to sit in a sleazy dealership. You just have to contact any bank and just say like, hey, I'm looking to buy a home. The homes I'm looking for are in the 400s. They'll ask you information and then they'll get you pre-approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. All right, last one.
Yes. Okay. These are just some myths. We've already covered the first one. You don't have to put 20% down. I just feel like everyone thinks that sometimes, or at least they did. So it's attainable to more people, which is great. And I love that there's programs that allow you to put a little to no money down. Okay, pre-approval is required typically, but we talked about this too. You have to be comfortable with the monthly payment because nobody likes to go under contract and then realize their monthly payment and then back out and potentially not get money back because technically you're approved, but you're not comfortable. And there's a difference in that with lenders.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you do buy a new home and you do have a realtor, you don't have to pay them. You don't
A
have
new
to worry
build
about
home. Sorry, I'm trying to clarify because everything is going to be new if it's new to me.
That's true. If you are buying through a builder, the builder is going to pay the realtor, not you.
Okay.
Whereas a resale, they take part of a percentage of the whatever the cost is. Taxes and HOA can vary, which is why you should probably figure out where you want to live because it totally affects monthly payment. I'll have people come in, we'll run monthly numbers, and I swear to God, I mean, it's like $1,000 to $1,500 off from what they were expecting because they're not taking that into account. It can make a huge difference depending on the tax rate.
Definitely. And then for my Florida people, or I don't know, I guess in other states, but insurance can be a big one in areas that have hurricanes, earthquakes, flood issues. Like your insurance rate could potentially be a real butthole, especially for a home that is already in existence because they make everything. If you buy something brand new, it should be up to their new code and they'll maybe give you a deal for a time. But yeah, definitely something to know. Like around here, there are areas that are flood zones and you're going to have to carry a whole separate flood policy. That's going to increase your insurance up significantly versus you could look a couple blocks in a different direction and be out of a technical flood zone, and that could save you money. So it does make sense that you would want to talk to a realtor unless you have like some specific house you're trying to buy from one specific person who's selling something by owner. You're probably going to get stuck dealing with a realtor. Sorry to the realtors of the world. I don't know.
Or you're just going to have to do a lot more research on your own and then figure it out. It's doable for sure. It's just you got to do your due diligence because you don't want to get stuck in a situation where you're like, oh crap, I did not think about that. That makes a huge difference, like the flood insurance stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. And every area, I mean, I don't know other parts of the country. I'm sure every area has like their weird quirks to some of this stuff, but it makes sense. Like talking to people in the industry in any form, they're going to know more than you know as the layman, especially if you're listening to this for 101 information. Yeah. It's not a bad thing to recognize that you don't know what you don't know.
Does that all make sense though? Is that helpful?
Yeah, this is so helpful. It's just all these words I hear flim-flamming around. And like I said, we are paying on our home, but I was not really involved in the purchase process because, like I said, we weren't even engaged at the time. This house just came up for sale and it was a good deal. And so, he moved on it. Obviously, we talked about like monthly payment and what we could afford together, but it'd be totally different if we were buying something now and I would be more involved. But because of that, I just don't know anything.
Yeah, no, totally.
So,
and yeah, for resale too, just knowing that there is an options period where you want to be able to get an inspection done because you want to make sure the house is A-okay and not going to fall apart the day after closing. So
Yeah.
that's when you would get like an appraisal done, make sure they're pricing it not crazy, and also the inspection. Those are the two biggest things in a resale or existing home that you or your realtor would want to schedule within the options period.
That makes sense. This is so helpful. Just the tip on the pre-approval thing, I think, is helpful for people.
Yes, because I can't even, again, realtors love you, but there's some people that unfortunately are new and they'll bring their clients out and we'll find the perfect home. They're like ready to move forward. And then we'll go through monthly payments and they'll say that's absolutely outside of our budget by a long shot. I'm like, great. I'm glad I wasted everyone's time. Thank you so much for doing your due diligence, realtor.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything. There's people that are great and then there's people that are poopy.
But it's attainable if you budget and you plan, and you can find a way with everything that's an option right now as far as incentives or programs, loans. Like it's more attainable now than I feel like people realize maybe. Of course, you need to be smart and make sure the monthly payment is good, and rates are higher right now, so maybe it's not affordable or attainable at this exact moment, but there's options essentially. So
I love that. Thank you so much. This was so fun. Do we have a way that we could like post these PDFs on our website for people to download?
Yeah, we could figure that out. Yes.
Or figure out a way if they sign up for our email, then we can send them out in our newsletter deal.
Mm-hmm. We can.
Okay.
We sure can.
Okay. Because I want the people to be able to go back and look at these because I feel like they're really helpful. Wow. I think that's really all the information that we could have ever possibly desired.
Right. Okay, good. I figured I'd stop there because I just love talking about it.
It's fun. This was fun because this is your world and we haven't gotten to dip our toes into Kayla land yet.
Yeah.
But that makes sense. It's very helpful. I did not know about buying incentives for builders. So it makes sense why it's so popular in areas where they're able to have production homes.
Oh, a shout out also to Orchard. This is not sponsored, but Orchard and Open Door. If you are trying to sell your home and don't want to go through the market, they will basically give you an offer. It may be a little bit less, but they have like cash investors and you'll be able to, if you're really desperate to sell your home, they'll sell it and then they'll allow you to stay in your home up until your new build is done, or you could just, like, they're very flexible. They work with builders a lot. So that's an option if you're scared about putting your home on the market. There's companies that help you with that.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I feel like less of an idiot. Now I know what PMI means.
Good. What else is there? And USDA offers loans.
Yeah, beef boys. Look at y'all. Certifying the ground. I don't know. Anyway, until next time. I love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Beep.
Beef boys.